Brothers and sisters, it's an honor and a privilege to welcome you today to this event to celebrate International Women's Day. The day focuses on the achievements of women and the issues that affect them daily. However, the issues that affect women also have a long-term impact on the whole of society. Today, our inspirational speakers will discuss how their various roles help support the dignity of women. Later, there will be an opportunity to view the exhibition that you see around you, called The Dignity of Women, Scriptural Reflections. The exhibition highlights the positive references on the status of women in the sacred scriptures of some of the world's religions. Now, these references are not commonly known, and at times, misrepresentation of religion causes women of faith to be discriminated against. It is hoped that this exhibition will educate religious and secular communities on the role and status of women, and in turn help to overcome misrepresentation and discrimination of women. There will then be a facilitated discussion led by our recently appointed member of staff, Reverend Jenny Ramsden, who is the lead for our project, Women Empowerment, Dialogue and Peace. Jenny works as the Women's Project Coordinator for Religions for Peace UK Women of Faith Network. Alongside this role, Jenny is also the Interfaith Advisor for the Bishop of Leeds. She delivers training for ministry in multi-faith contexts to clergy and lay leaders across the diocese, and is actively engaged in positive interfaith relationships. And she has a particular focus on challenging gender-based religious violence. And Jenny is going to speak to us on what is meant by dignity. Thank you, Jenny.
Good evening, everyone. It's such a pleasure to be in Scotland here with you all this evening. I travelled up from Yorkshire yesterday, so beautiful drive and fabulous to be in Edinburgh here with you all. So our event is celebrating International Women's Day, and we've entitled the event The Dignity of Women. But what do we mean when we use the word dignity? So to start with a dictionary definition, the Oxford English Dictionary says that dignity is the state or quality of being worthy of honour or respect. But actually, if you look at the term dignity, it's evolved over the years. Originally, the Latin, English and French words for dignity didn't have anything at all to do with a person's inherent worth or value. It signified much more closely, was much more aligned with somebody's merit. So if someone was dignified, it meant they had a high status. Maybe they belonged to royalty or the church, or at the very least, they had money. So the phrase dignity, as we understand it today, wasn't recognised until 1948, actually, when the United Nations ratified the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. And they turned this concept of dignity completely on its head. Article 1 states, "All human beings are born free and equal in dignity and rights." And so suddenly dignity wasn't something that people earned because of their class or because of their gender or because of any other advantage they might have been born with. It was something that all human beings were born with. Simply by being human, said the UN, all people deserve honour and deserve respect. And human rights then naturally spring from this dignity. So in fact, that Declaration of Human Rights states this. It states, human dignity is not only a fundamental right, it is the foundation of all other fundamental rights. The concept of human dignity isn't limited to human rights. In fact, for centuries, religions around the world have recognised the form of dignity that I've just spoken about. And later on, Ravinder is going to speak more about that, and you will see that more when you view our exhibition, which is also called The Dignity of Women, Scriptural Reflections. So when everyone is equal, they are all equally deserving of basic respect and rights, at least in theory. Kofi Annan, former UN Secretary General, has said this: women themselves have the right to live in dignity, in freedom from want and freedom from fear. And yet we know that for hundreds and millions of women and girls here and around the world, those basic human rights are denied. So as Ravinder has said, each of our speakers today, in their different contexts and spheres, is working towards both restoring and upholding the dignity of women, of ensuring that all women are treated with honour and respect, in freedom from want and freedom from fear. We are deeply honoured to have them with us here tonight, sharing something of their work. And so I'm going to hand back to Ravinder to introduce our first guest speaker. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Jenny, for informing us all that dignity for all is enshrined in the Human Rights Declaration. So don't let anybody say that you are not allowed to have dignity. Now it is my honour and privilege to introduce the Scottish Minister for Equalities and Older People, the Right Honourable Christina McKelvie. Born in Glasgow, Christina, who has two sons, studied at the University of St Andrews and has been the MSP for Hamilton Larkhall and Stonehouse since May 2011. She was previously the MSP for Central Scotland and has been chair of the Equalities and Human Rights Committee. We are delighted to have you with us today, Minister, and look forward to hearing you speak.
Thank you so much. I'm going to bring my tea if you don't mind. I'm lucky I keep getting a sore throat, so I don't want to miss out any of my words tonight. Ravinder, thank you so much for that warm welcome. It's always a joy to see you, as you know, and it's always great to meet with people that I've met with over the piece, but to look out and see not just some of our nice male allies here, but all of these powerful women is a joy to be home. And we are here because we're celebrating International Women's Day. We have many events on this week over the peace in Parliament, but out in communities as well. So, and this is just one of them. We're really pleased to be with you. And I want to thank Religions for Peace UK, Women of Faith Network, and Jenny, welcome to your new role, and of course Ravinder for inviting me along. It's great to be here. As Minister for Equalities and Older People, the intersection of gender equality and religion is of great interest to me, and I'm very looking forward to hear Ravinder and Bonnie, who I've met before, who've had some great chats before, on their reflections on that. So I'm not going to take too much of your time because they're really important people have got to speak after me. I just wanted to share maybe some of my thoughts about the challenges that continue to affect women in our society, in our communities, and tell you about some of the vital work that the Scottish Government's doing to tackle that gender inequality. But let me begin by saying that my work has given me many opportunities. I am not at all blind to my privilege that I have being a government minister and being elected, but certainly has allowed me to work with many people and taking on the challenges of leadership and women's rights across Scotland and in some ways globally. I spent a lot of time back and forth to Strasbourg when I was delegate for the Parliament to the Council of Europe, so Lots of great events, but lots of good learning and understanding for me as well. So on the one hand, we don't have to look very far at all, especially in politics in Scotland, to see women. You know, there is many of us there. In 2021, we have a parliament where 45% of Scotland's 129 MSPs are women. We've still got a bit of work to do there. It's still 51% of the population, so we need to make sure that we do a bit of work. But it's absolutely phenomenal, because that was a jump from 35% at the last election, which is a huge jump. You know, and on the other hand, you don't need to look very far to see around the globe that women are still not in those places of leadership, and they often attract a heightened level of criticism, especially online. Please do not go look at any of my tweets later on. Look at the first one, don't look at the responses. Lots of people online follow me, not all of them friendly. But it can also be sometimes very, very difficult to separate what is just, you know, the misogyny that you get in these circumstances, and critical comment, because critical comment allows us to analyse, reflect, and maybe change how we're doing things. But these things become intertwined, and it's very difficult to separate the both. But the reality remains that for women attaining a high level in a position like mine, or excelling in a role with years of experience under your belt, is no protection from other people's gendered assumptions of you, the unconscious bias that we all face, and everyday sexism that we all face too. We also know that for women, those whose identities intersect with other protected characteristics such as race, religion or disability, there's additional aspects of prejudice to contend with as well. Contemporary research on the role of women in families demonstrates that many of us are still the primary carer for children or elderly parents, or even when we are in paid employment. And I've just come from an event in Parliament where we're celebrating care in all of its forms, and I've just met some of the people who are doing that down there. Disproportionately gendered, disproportionately not valued as much as it should be. But that disproportionate impact has an impact on us all, and COVID was an example of that. It had a huge impact on women's lives. It revealed stark inequalities, both clearly than ever, I think, that we've seen before. It showed beyond a doubt the struggle for gender equality, whether in the workplace or in the home, is still a fight we have to win. I'm therefore extremely proud that the gender equality is at the heart of our Scottish Government's vision for a fairer Scotland. Believe me, in our leadership competition that's going on right now, that's the questions I'm asking the three candidates. From my point of view, if you're going to lead Scotland, then the women need to be at the table. I'm extremely proud, as I said, and I want a Scotland where women and girls feel empowered to access economic resources and make decisions for themselves. It's a Scotland where women can live their lives free from all forms of violence, abuse and harassment. Sadly, we still see too much of that. But it's also a vision. It's a vision where, we know we have a long road ahead of us, but I think with determination we're going to get there. So I think I should tell you what we've done so far. As part of an extensive gender equality work, we have established the Gender Equality Task Force in Education and Learning. That's starting at the earliest points in a young woman's life. We've also established the Fairer Scotland for Women Gender Pay Gap Action Plan, and we're seeing real progress being made on that just in the past few months. We've seen that progress. We're also developing plans to incorporate the UN Convention for the Elimination of All Forms of Discrimination Against Women and Girls into Scots law in our Human Rights Bill that we're working on right now. Myself and Captec Shore, our officer, are working on that. Happy to share with you information if you want to hear more about that. And we're also implementing the recommendations for the First Minister's National Advisory Council for Women and Girls. There's nowhere else in the world where a President, a Prime Minister or a First Minister has a National Advisory Council for Women and Girls, who I'm telling you are not afraid to say how it is, and they've been very, very bold with their actions for us. And we also established a Scottish Government Directorate for Equality, Inclusion and Human Rights to ensure continued focus on this work, and that was a recommendation from the First Advisory Council. So taking on board the ideas that they've come up with, the recommendations that they've given us, and bringing them into real life. These long-term ambitions are real commitments, but they're foundations of many practical and immediate actions that touch the everyday lives of women now. Through collaborative work on period products and free provisions, Scotland Act 2021, I'm always really proud when I talk about this. Access to free period products is now enshrined in law for anyone who needs them, and we don't need to look far in the world to see where that inequality stopped girls from going to school. And we've still got work to do to make sure that happens as well. Hopefully Scotland has shown the way on that one, and that was a really excellent piece of cross-party work by women to bring that to our Parliament. So shows you the benefit of having us in there. In August 2021, all local authorities have been offering eligible children 1,140 hours of funded early learning and childcare. Well, we spoke to women about 8 years ago about what do you need to thrive in your environment, in your workplace, in your career, in your entrepreneurship. What do you need? They said good quality childcare. And that's where we are with that now, and we know how valuable that's been. And we will invest £100 million over the next 3 years to support frontline services and focus on prevention of violence against women and girls from school onwards. And that's the work I'm involved in with our Equally Safe Joint Board. Equally safe in schools, equally safe in the workplace, equally safe in society. The importance of this work in Scotland Government's commitment cannot be overstated, I think. I think it's great working very closely with stakeholders. I don't do any policy development without other real people at the table. The civil servants will tell me that. Yeah. I don't do any of that work at all because I think I need people who are having that lived and living experience every day in their lives at the table, helping us make those decisions. And that's why our decisions, when we make them, become transformational, and the real point and the real focus of International Women's Day this year is about breaking the bias. So breaking that bias allows us to tackle that discrimination with the acts that we have. And it's why it's really encouraging for me to be here tonight with you all. Voices, not just your voices, your smiles, your reflections, but your activism, and bringing all that together. Determined, capable, action-orientated women, all in the one room. My goodness, we're a force to be reckoned with. But it is a sad truth, I think, that religion has often been misused as a patriarchal system to silence women's voices and control their lives, but ultimately that's not succeeded. I just need to look out into this room to see that. So well done, but we still got work to do. But women, so many women from all faiths are today finding their voices within their traditions, their communities and their scriptures. They are finding inspiration and power within their faith to bring about change. In doing this, they are exercising true leadership. They are taking the promise and the vision of equality, which is so foundational in the spiritual traditions of the world, and are applying it to our everyday lives, and we thank you for it. But in reality, this is what lasting transformational change in women's leadership looks like. It starts at the ground level and it grows. It's organic. You put your roots, plant your seeds, put your roots down, and grow it from there. And we know that there are people, systems and aspects of culture which inhibit the growth of gender equality. But when we do plant those seeds, it takes a lot to stop us from growing. There are people who still refuse to recognise women's equality, and that's why we still need International Women's Day. They don't recognise our freedoms, or they unconsciously feel threatened by our voices, or fail to take us seriously. Looking at the women in this room, well, that's a big mistake, isn't it? Absolutely. So I encourage you all, please keep speaking up, speaking out, using your experience, your everyday lived experience, particularly when it comes to your faith and your traditions. It's not easy. Try and be a woman in politics. We need a lot of faith sometimes. But we draw on that from you and the work that you do. So keep sowing those seeds for change, because your voices matter and your leadership is really powerful. So thank you so much for having me tonight. Keep doing what you're doing, and I'll go shut up now and let the real inspirational people come in and talk to you about their faith tonight. Thank you so much.
Right, now I have the pleasure of introducing Reverend Bonnie Evan-Hills, a fellow colleague on the UK Women of Faith Network Coordinating Committee. Bonnie is a priest in the Scottish Episcopal Church and has considerable experience in interreligious dialogue, working with organisations such as the EU Commission on Foreign Affairs and Security, the World Council of Churches, Churches Together in Britain and Ireland, the Anglican Communion, and the Anglican Mission Organisation USPG. Bonnie has been involved in contributing to the UN Office for the Prevention of Genocide's Global Plan of Action for Religious Leaders and Actors. Alongside several other publications, Bonnie is co-author of the book Engaging Islam from a Christian Perspective, published by Peter Lang. She was recently awarded the Hubert Walter Award for Reconciliation and Interfaith Cooperation by the Archbishop of Canterbury. Bonnie, please.
Just ignore all that. What an honour it is to be up here and to be asked to speak and to share the platform with the Right Honourable Christina McKelvie and Ravinder and Jenny and all of you here. So thank you for being here and thank you for listening ahead of time. So last July, the UK hosted an International Ministerial of Freedom of Religion or Belief, with national representatives from all over the world. Now, freedom of religion or belief sounds an excellent agenda for leaders of religion and belief to collaborate with governments. And for the most part, I would agree, but that agreement comes with a caution. Freedom of religion or belief is one article in the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, none of which were intended to be separated out. They are meant to function in balance. And sadly, there have been some elements among our more conservative colleagues who have sought to use freedom of religion or belief as a means of justifying continued exclusion of certain groups, to do with gender, race, sexuality, or even other religions, or those within their own tradition but who hold differing views. All freedoms come with responsibility. To ensure the rights of others are not negatively affected by our actions. We are free to believe what we like, but not to act or express it in a way that would adversely affect the lives and rights of others. So while this engagement with freedom of religion or belief sounds basically good, it must come with this caution. Shortly following this ministerial, I was in Fez, Morocco, attending a UN conference with the Office for Prevention of Genocide. And we heard that a statement on gender by the ministerial had been greatly altered. This statement had originally included a commitment to the repeal of any laws that allow harmful practices or restrict women's and girls' sexual and reproductive health and rights, bodily autonomy. But after the ministerial had concluded, this portion was unilaterally altered by the UK Westminster government without consultation from other signatories. The statement had originally had 22 signatories. A number of them pulled out amid much controversy, and the number of signatories was reduced to 8. To this date, no individual minister in Westminster has taken responsibility for that change, despite continued challenge and questioning. There are sexual health clinics, places where women go for treatment of various health issues, including infections, infertility, rape and sexual abuse, female genital mutilation, and, oh yes, abortion. But women entering clinics are subjected to abuse by those claiming to be praying for them. Is this what freedom of religion or belief is supposed to be about? No. The end result of these actions is curtailing of access to medical treatment and a huge loss of dignity for those seeking help. There's a living memory where I grew up in the United States of segregation. And even more recently for those where there has been apartheid, such as in South Africa. What this meant was that those who had darker skin were barred from attending certain schools or even getting an education. They couldn't go to certain places, couldn't go to restaurants or concerts or shops. They couldn't ride the bus or even use certain drinking fountains for water. Racism still exists. I must acknowledge that my own skin color has given me and continues to give certain advantages. But at the same time, there are places I am not allowed to go, things I can't participate in because I am a woman. Now, while there has been good intention behind providing special programs for women and young people, the question does need to be asked. how to empower excluded groups without adding to that exclusion. Because sometimes in setting up these programs, we are still setting people aside, keeping them out of the main agenda in the name of empowering them. In one of my former churches, a group of us listened to a young teenager explain that she wanted to be part of the church because she wanted to be part of a community. She didn't want to be set aside in a group called youth. She wanted to be part of a wider community, to worship together and not to be sent out, to be separated. A number of indigenous cultures throughout the world, and I would say here in Scotland, include all, old and young, women and men, in their ceremonies, in their storytelling, in their day-to-day activities of growing food, agriculture, hunting on the land, going out to sea, in the arts, in their sharing of songs. The generations, women and men, old and young, come together. There's a rhetoric that justifies education of women and girls because they are the ones who raise the next generation. But no, children are not raised alone by a woman alone in the house. It takes a village, a community, men and women together, old and young together, to raise one child. During the 2016 UN World Humanitarian Summit, the importance of including women and young people at all levels was repeatedly emphasized. Both are the most vulnerable to exploitation and conflict. Women are sexually exploited, and young people are not only subject to similar exploitation, but also sold into slave labor or forced into being child soldiers. But it is women who ensure a community is fed, clothed, and housed, that they receive medical assistance, and young people tend to be the first to volunteer in any crisis. Their inclusion means that health, financial well-being, and education improves. Don't include women, and this doesn't happen. For men and women alike. It's not that women have all the answers. We don't. Honestly, we don't. But rather that together, sharing perspectives, we just might. There are places in the world, we know, where women and girls are not only blocked from access to education, but from leaving their own homes in freedom, or they're expected to wear certain items of clothing. And, it's all too easy to point to these places and feel good about the freedoms that exist elsewhere. But the thin end of the wedge to the eradication of those freedoms that we enjoy so far are in those cases, such as mentioned earlier, where our own governments remove calls for access to sexual and reproductive rights and bodily autonomy. I'll end there. Thank you.
Ravinder Kaur, who I know many of you know, is the Chair of Religions for Peace UK Women of Faith Network, Sikh representative on the Scottish Religious Leaders Forum, Vice Chair Religions for Peace UK. For over 30 years, she has initiated many projects to promote interfaith dialogue, respect and peace between communities, nationally and internationally. As co-chair from 2006 to 2014, Ravinder Kaur was a founding member of Religions for Peace European Women of Faith Network, developing women of faith networks across Europe. She is a former member of the International Women's Coordinating Committee for the Global Women of Faith Network and served from 2000 to 2015 on the Executive Committee of the Interfaith Network for the UK, former Chair of Scottish Interfaith Council, and is the Honorary Sikh Chaplain at Glasgow University. She is also an experienced educationalist who taught in the primary and secondary sector for over 30 years and has a BEd Honours degree, ATQ primary qualification and a postgraduate diploma in religious education from the University of Glasgow. Ravinder, it's a pleasure to introduce you to
Thank you, Jenny. Felt a bit odd introducing myself. Thank you. Right, I would like to begin by first explaining a little bit about Religions for Peace, as it is an organisation that is not well known in the UK, but is the world's largest and most representative multi-religious coalition, advancing common action among the world's religious community for peace. For over 50 years, Religions for Peace has been a movement changing the world and challenging the status quo through the mutual conviction that religions are more powerful, inspiring, and impactful when they work together. The Global Religions for Peace organization, with its headquarters in New York, comprises of a World Council of over 100 senior religious leaders from all regions of the world, 6 regional interreligious bodies. For example, in Europe, we have the European Council of Religious Leaders, the Global Women of Faith Network, the Global Interfaith Youth Network, and it operates in more than 90 countries worldwide. Religions for Peace UK Women of Faith Network is part of the Global Women of Faith Network, whose aim is to allow women from different religions and cultures to coordinate strategies, pool resources and capabilities for cooperative action. And our motto is different faiths, common action. The national network uses existing building blocks of faith-based and interfaith-based women's organisations in the UK to form the network. So that was a history lesson. So, on to International Women's Day, the reason why we are here today, celebrating the achievement of women and their leadership roles. You know, I find it strange that we need to have a day that celebrates the achievement of women, because to me, all women achieve tremendous goals every day, whether it is in the home, at work, or within their communities. However, their contribution is not valued and given recognition and the dignity it deserves. There is an enormous gap in equality between men and women. The most recent Sustainable Development Goals report in 2022 on Goal 5, which is achieve gender equality and empower all women and girls, states that only 26% of countries around the world have systems to track gender budget allocations. 1 in 4 women have been subjected to intimate partner violence. And Minister, you'd be interested in this. It will take another 40 years for women and men to be represented equally in national political leadership at the current pace, but obviously not in Scotland. Scotland's doing much better than the rest of the world. Well, we won't get equality in the political leadership in my lifetime, but we can work together to make life better for women whose voices cannot be heard, and give them the honour, dignity, and equality that they deserve, that we all deserve. Although at the rate we are progressing today, it will take many years to attain gender equality. It may surprise some of you that the founders of all the religions gave women equal status centuries ago, but somehow this has been lost through time. I wonder if it was intentional. As a woman of faith belonging to the Sikh religion, I was given equal status over 5 centuries ago. Guru Nanak, the founder of the Sikh Dharma, stated, "The Creator pervades in all genders, so why should we belittle women and consider them lowly?" And this quote I really like from the Holy Sikh Scriptures, the Guru Granth Sahib Ji. She is the most noble of all family. She counsels and advises the elders and youngsters. How blessed is that household in which she has appeared. In my home, she is my leader. She is the ruler, and God has made us her courtiers. In Islam, it is recognized that it's not gender, race, or culture that enables one to excel in the eyes of God. It is piety and good works. And I quote, "I shall not lose sight of the labor of any of you who labors in my way, be it man or woman. Each of you is equal to the other." Hindu scriptures state that the mother is more worthy of reverence than the father or a teacher. Quote, "The teacher who teaches true knowledge is more important than 10 instructors. The father is more important than 10 such teachers of true knowledge. And the mother is more important than 10 such fathers. There is no true greater guru than the mother." In the Baha'i scriptures it is written, "The world of humanity has 2 wings. One is women and the other men. Not until both wings are equally developed can the bird fly. Should one wing remain weak, flight is impossible." And in Christianity, though a woman cannot do without a man, neither can a man do without woman. Woman may come from man, but man is born of woman. Both come from God. It is imperative that we educate ourselves, our families, young people, and men as to what is written in religious scriptures, and be able to challenge those who misuse religion and deny women their rightful place in society. For centuries, women have been denied access to education, and even now, as we've heard before, in many parts of the world, girls are not allowed to go to school, or because of family pressures, cannot attend school. If you do not know how to read, then you cannot develop yourself spiritually, educationally, and take part in society. We all need to work together to give the millions of voiceless women their dignity and use our positions of power to help them. Throughout the centuries, the potential of women to transform society has been ignored. Let us all work together to ensure that women and girls reach their potential in all areas of their lives throughout the world. Women must be respected, valued, and held in great esteem. A society that does not value its women cannot achieve peace and prosperity. And finally, the most important fact for all of you to remember is that without women, there would not be a human race. Thank you.